what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the CEO Pulse podcast, where you get the real, the raw, and the mind of entrepreneurship. Another special episode of the Mindset Monday podcast with my co-host, Justin Thorstad.
That's cute.
Yeah. You weren't expecting that.
No, I was thinking something totally
expecting
different.
that. You can't tell me.
Caught me off guard.
Come on, bro. I got you. I got you, boo. All right, let's talk about other people's opinions, right? You called it FOPO.
Yeah.
Fear.
FOPO.
Yeah, fear.
Technically, there's two O's, but fear of other people's opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fear of other people's opinions, right? I think that's something that happens quite often, especially as we launch into the space of betting on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Doubt creeps in. There's a lot of times where we are looking for validation outside of us, especially if you haven't done the work, and especially, well, if you have done the work, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Like, because you can think of yourself back to a time where you were not aware of all these things. Mm-hmm. But if you haven't done the work, and I'm talking about personal work or personal growth work, right? It's easy to get caught up in that, am I worthy? Am I good enough? And that self-doubt, right? And we start looking at things outside of us, like other people's opinions, to get validation about what we're doing, right? And then, like everything else, it builds up on its own, and sometimes it can become a monster that's so big and scary that all that matters is what other people think of us as we go through this process, right? So we start operating from a space that's not our truth per se. So
Absolutely. So, I mean, every single human has experienced this at some level, right?
Yeah.
And I think the more, especially as entrepreneurs, the more you put yourself out there and the more you want to succeed and grow, like, you're going to experience it on new levels. You know what I mean? Because some people say, no, I don't care about other people's opinions. Yeah, okay, well, have you stood on stage with 1,000 people staring at you? Let me know how you're doing initially, right? I mean, you know all about that as well. Yeah. So, like, and it's because it's part of our ancient brain in regards to, like, we're hardwired for connection. We thrive in communities, not as solo individual creatures.
Yeah.
And so, think about it. You go back 10,000 years, and for the men, it's go out and kill, hunt, provide food, right? Well, when you come back with nothing and you're empty-handed, what sort of connection, significance do you get from that? None. You feel like a failure, right? Because you're letting down people around you. So same thing, if you're going into business, speaking on stage, whatever it is, to put yourself out there, there's that fear of what are people going to think about me? And then that leads to the self-doubt, right? Am I enough? Am I capable? Am I worthy? Am I deserving? Yeah. So every single one of us have experienced this, or people are still experiencing it, unless they've done the personal development.
Well, I mean, I want to take it a couple of steps back, maybe a couple of decades back, right? Depending on how old you are. But I think, I mean, it all stems, the psychology behind it and how we see it, how we perceive it, all stems from childhood. Right?
Totally.
As we are growing up, we wanna be liked by those people who we're in class with, right? Yeah. We want hugs and kisses and protection and love and connection, and care and connection, from our parents, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean that plays right into it, and it starts to create the psyche. What happens? Like, we start caring a lot about the people around us. And their emotions or feelings towards us, because we're born and raised, right? Well, to feel that way. The point I'm trying to make here is that it's not a bad thing to care about what other people think, all right? And I know sometimes, it's thrown around like, I don't give a shit about what anybody says about me. It's almost contradicting the whole fact that you were raised in a social environment, right? Because it's one of those things that we borrow as we grow up. It becomes part of our essence, right? Yeah. We have to collaborate with others because we live with others. You're not this human in this one planet all by yourself. Yeah. Now, with that being said, it becomes natural wiring. It becomes just, the path of thinking, of the thought process, right? Or priority path, if you want to, call it anything, to, be liked by others. Why? Because that's the programming that we have being raised, with family members, with, what do we say? You either say next of kin or your significant other, or we always make that connection, right? So it's almost ludicrous to not care about what other people think, right? But now having fear behind that is a whole different energy.
100%.
Yeah.
And so, like in psychology, it's always the argument of, well, is that through nature? Like, is it hardwired in our brain, or is it nurtured, meaning learned, right?
Yeah.
And I believe that fear of other people's opinions, at least when we're children, is both nature and nurture.
Yeah.
Because you think about it, well, we talked about the part of the brain that, community, but even as a small child, even if you were raised by one person, whether it be your mom, a grandparent, aunt, uncle, whatever, like, you needed their approval to get your survival needs met. Food, shelter. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And if you didn't have trauma as a child, then maybe that doesn't land, but it's a thing, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's it's hardwired into us, and we also learn that it's important to get the approval connection for survival.
Yeah. I mean, and you had
Let
to...
alone love and significance, right?
Exactly. You had to have that, right? Because otherwise, back in the Stone Age, you were going to be eaten by the saber-toothed tiger.
Yeah.
Like you had to have protection somehow, some way. So that was the thing that we were craving. Now it's a completely different thing. It's self-validation, right? It's just as scary as a saber-toothed tiger, if you ask me, in a lot of ways, right? Or we perceive it as being, when you're rejected from society. It's a really bad thing. Right, it's just like your world can come crumbling down. The whole sense of worth and personal power can get lost in it. If we don't hold a clear grasp on who we are, right? Sure. And if we're missing that first part, that second part can be more of a hindrance, which is the outside acceptance, than something that pushes you and motivates you and helps you thrive.
Well, what I like what you said is it's not about saying, well, I don't give a fuck what other people think, because that's ridiculous. Yeah. But the difference between, again, is there a saber-toothed tiger right outside the cave? Is it safe to come out? That's danger. That's real. Yeah.
Right.
What we're talking about is fear. So we don't have saber-toothed tigers anymore. You know what I mean? There's no bear that's going to eat you. Yet the fear is a story. It's a bundle of beliefs, right? Yeah. And that fear, if you notice in the body, it sets up the same kind of reaction as a danger, but they're completely different. And so now, as evolved beings, we get to have the awareness of, okay, if I'm feeling that in my body, then where's it coming from? Because there's no danger. Unless there is an imminent danger, but that'd be kind of weird, right? So it's just a story then. Yeah. And the personal development comes into play of okay, let me have the self-awareness to inspect those stories and which ones actually support me and which ones hold me back and sabotage and those kinds of things. So just realizing that, I just like what you said about that. That was very important distinction to make.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of social factors, right, that play into it. It's not just our own little, world and personal psyche that goes, and steers us that way. It's just, there's a lot of social factors. Everything just, pushes us to outside acceptance, to become, again, programmed for that type of stuff. And we, say it, for example, I'll say it, and I've said it to my kids. I don't care what anybody thinks about me, right? But it's not I care what they think about me. I care what my kids think about me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's very selective. It's I don't let the regular or public or just anybody who I don't know doesn't is not really connected to me. If they say something bad, it's not gonna rock my world per se, right? Yeah. I don't let that kind of stuff get to me. When it comes from somebody who's immediate to us, the wife, the kid, that
Sure.
matters, right? So fear of what other people think, it's a real thing, right? And I think it's it's there for a reason. We just can't take that and then let it loose all over the place. Like we have to understand where that fear is coming from. We have to understand if it's a valid fear, if it's something that makes sense, or are you just worried about what the general consensus about you is going to be?
Sure.
Or, 'cause if you're worried about that, I mean, shit, we have 32 different, identifiers for sexual preference now. Like,
Oh, really?
You're gonna be very confused. Like, there's gonna be a lot of stuff that that you're not gonna fit in that box.
Sure.
And like, if you're going for the general audience, in terms of you want everybody to love you, everybody to accept you, and
Good luck.
you're afraid about what everybody's gonna say about you. I mean, shit. I mean, that's I don't know. It's a lot of work.
There's 7 billion people in this
Yeah,
world.
it's a lot of work.
You need all of them to approve of you and love you.
It's a lot of work, and none of that, or none of that work is gonna tell you what your truth is, right? So we have to find ourselves. We have to look within ourselves and realize who we are. Once we hold the grip on that, and we have a good stance on that personal power, I think the selection process becomes a lot easier, quote unquote selection, right?
Yeah.
Of whose opinion we take into context, whose do we take into heart,
And why, right?
And why, exactly?
Because to get up on stage in front of a lot of people and perform at your highest, like it supports you to not care about their opinions and judgments. Yet, but I'm talking about the distinction is like, do they think that I sound funny or look funny or those kinds of things? Now, I care about my audience. I care about my students. I care about my agents in the sense that I want to know their opinions and judgments, because if there's something that I'm not conveying, if there's something I'm not providing that they expect, like I care about that. Because a lot of times we think the solution is what we have in mind, yet we don't know our own blind spots. So getting feedback of opinions of like, okay, how can I give you new content? How can I say the same content differently to where it lands? Those kind of opinions we want to care about. It's constructive. Yeah. We're talking about the kind of fear of opinions and judgments where it holds you back. Like you're not willing to get on stage. You're not willing to do the podcast. You're not willing to speak your truth. You know what I mean? And I think it stems from, think back of a time like in school, in grade school, where a teacher asked a question, you thought you knew the answer. She's like, oh, and then you blurted it out and you were totally wrong and everyone laughs at you.
Like, no, bro, it's 2.
Yeah.
What? I had issues.
He had a hard time with that. Math wasn't my strong point either. So,
I could never figure out science.
Yeah. We all have those experiences of when we were younger, of when we attempted to express our uniqueness and our gifts, and it was shot down.
Now think about the magnification or psychological magnification that happens when we're little, right? We're growing up. A failure back then. I mean, right now, we see failure on the regular. Like, it's just, it's like a bowl of breakfast in the morning, right? Like, I don't know, we fucked something up throughout the day. It's what we do. We're entrepreneurs. We're figuring things out. Nothing's perfect. And it's a process that we're okay with, right? So our skin...
Part of the allure, to me.
I mean, it's, okay, cool. How can I overcome that challenge? How can I be a better person? How can I, anyways, a whole different, rabbit hole. But think about a simple failure when we are, 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old. We got a C on a test.
Oh, I got one. Yeah.
And brought it home, and they were expecting, and like they wouldn't even, like, I remember they wouldn't even scold me for it. Like, it wasn't like my mom, single mom, but she wouldn't even like. She'd be like, okay, it's okay. You know what I mean? So she wasn't mean about it or anything like that, but I felt bad because I knew she was expecting more of me. But that, like, for example, that loss magnified in my mind, right? So what happens to that emotion? It magnifies. So the fear of loss or the fear of failure becomes a lot bigger. And then as we grow, like, that's a type of reaction that we're going to get,
100%.
triggered
so,
with.
Like, that event for a child could be traumatic. So, for example, I remember, like, I don't know what age, but I was really little. And like every Friday, there'd be a spelling quiz, if you will, of 10 words, right? And my mom made me a deal. If I brought that home and I got all the words right, I get 50 cents. Yeah. That kind of dates me. But, So, but I remember every Friday bringing home, like, I'd get 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 was really the horrible one. You know what I mean? So I was almost there.
So close.
And same thing. My mom didn't like, beat me up or anything, but I just remember
your teacher, bro.
Yeah, like feeling the disappointment. And for a child with that level of, metacognition, which is limited. It was like there was a traumatic moment in time when that happened, because trauma isn't what happened to you. It's what happened inside of you. You know what I mean? And to this day, I'm like, I can't spell. Because that was the story I told myself as a kid.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and I'm not smart enough and all these kinds of things. Later, reframed that and turned it into a superpower. But the point is, like, we all have these experiences, and to just take a look at, okay, is this serving me? Like, am I getting and creating my desired results with this story?
Yeah.
Or is it holding me back? Because, listen, I believe that every single one of us has a unique gift to bring forward and a unique way of expressing that gift. Yet so many people are like mouth closed and afraid to bring that forward because what will other people think of me?
Yeah.
And this is just going to be another example of how I'm not enough, because if I say something, it's going to get shut down.
Think about all the brilliant ideas out there, right? The people with talent, great talent.
Oh, yeah.
That are just not willing to bring it forward because they don't want to, step outside the box. They don't want to step outside the norm.
Well, they say the wealthiest place in the world is the graveyard. People take that things to
oh my
their
God,
death.
yeah.
It's sad.
And I mean, it's one of the biggest threats to entrepreneurship and innovation and just growth altogether, right? I'm not going to do it because that question might be stupid. Or no, it's probably a stupid idea. Or you know what? Nobody in my family, nobody in my circle has ever done it, so they're going to judge me, and because it's probably stupid, right? So we start to create all these biases against stuff just based off of the fear of what other people think, right?
100%.
What happens? We start with outside judgments. We start to interpret and assume outside judgments. Then that leads to us creating our own judgments about our potential, about the goals that we set for ourselves, about whether or not we have the capability, the power, right, the personal power to reach them. Then that translates directly into what we think about our own personal potential. And it's a scary thing, right? Because it's coming from outside. It's like it's giving the I don't know, like I'm a Marvel's fan, but it's giving like the glove when it's got all the rocks in it. The gauntlet. Is that what it was called?
I don't catch the reference.
All right, well, whatever.
But
yes,
watch
so it's like giving anyways, everybody out there, 99.9% of the people out there know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I don't know.
You're the
Geo,
point.
edit that.
You're the 0.1% that doesn't.
Probably.
have a clue.
I'm okay with that.
That'll date you. So no, but anyways, it's like giving this power of this to something outside of us, right?
External,
And it's so easy to do, so easy, in fact, that we don't even realize we're doing it.
Yeah.
Why? Because of fear, what somebody else might think. One thing that helped me just kind of get through the through the fogginess of that whole thing was I started thinking like, shit, are they putting food on my table?
Oh, yeah.
Are they feeding my family, my kids?
Man, I'm so glad you said that.
If I don't perform, are they gonna be there, for me emotionally? Like, if I'm failing, are they, willing out to, come in and help? Or am I in this thing by myself, right?
Man,
it's a very select few group of people that I feel would jump in, to rescue, even just throw a lifeline, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ask yourself that question. If you're giving people out there that level of importance about what they think, right? And so much that it's hindering your process, it's hindering your potential, it's hindering your path and taking away from your table.
Even just getting started.
I mean, there's a lot of reassessment that needs to take place, right? Because I guarantee you, 99.9% of those people that you're afraid of, what they might be thinking, are not, giving you the life that you're pursuing, right? They're not helping you with that life. They're not putting food on your table. They're not, for the most part, I'm assuming. Well, but I mean, that's my case, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm so glad you said that, because virtually everyone that I've ever coached, whether it's an agent, an entrepreneur in a different industry, like this comes up. It's a topic.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, well, I don't want to do this because then so-and-so. It's like, wait a minute. So you're telling me you're not living your life? You're living their life on what you think they want from you and what you think they think you should be doing. It's like, they're not going to pay your bills, man. So like, let's get on with it. And
that's how you end up, 80 90 years old on your deathbed with regrets.
Regret. Yeah. And that's a poison, man.
Bro, that's scary. Just
if
to
you
think,
can
just
make
to
it
think
80,
about
90
that
with
is scary
regret,
to me.
It's toxic.
Like,
yeah.
oof.
And here's the thing too about the fear of other people's opinions.
Yeah.
You're making that shit up.
Yeah.
Like you think that they're going to think something bad of it, and they're not even paying attention. They could not care less than they do right now. In fact, they're in their head scared about their shit. You know what I'm saying?
Let me ask you this: how many thoughts go through our heads on a daily basis? I think
60 to 70,000.
You had a stat on that. 60 to 70,000, right? What we are concerned about when we are afraid of other people's opinions is one of those 60 to 70,000 thoughts that are going through their head, not even our head.
Yeah.
Their head.
Yeah.
Like that's how much that, we're taking, how much space we're taking in most people's.
Well, how many people are not willing to get on the dance floor because they're afraid that other
Yeah.
people are going to judge them? It's like they're scared about the same thing.
Then somebody who can't dance hops up, takes the hot chick.
There you
Happens
go.
all the time.
Yep.
I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you.
Oh shit.
I don't know who I was looking at, but I'm looking at somebody and like that somebody's waving their head right now, going up and down.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
It's relevant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got some solutions for you all. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you were going to kick it up. Well, you can't tee it up and then just
usually
kind of, come on, bro. You left me hanging.
Okay. So how do you transcend the judgment? That's really the thing.
Yeah.
And for the sake of time, I'm just going to cut to a couple things. Like two things. One, creating your own personal philosophy. And there's a practice to that. And creating your own personal philosophy is like, it's the thing you can fall back on when you're nervous, when you're feeling that anxiety of other people's opinions. And then also like identify what are your truths about you?
Yeah.
Like not just about you and your capabilities and your gifts, but like who are you? What are you about? What do you stand for? And those things have supported me so much. It's resourcing self, right? Again, with your own personal truths and your personal philosophy, instead of relying on something external.
Yeah.
Like a coach should be like, you got this, attaboy. Like that's supportive, but is it required? Because if it is, what happens if something happens to that coach?
Yeah.
Now you're screwed. Like, how do you become a sovereign being?
And well, on that note, right? Like I've coached with a lot of people, meaning they've been my coaches, and we come in and we outgrow them.
Yes.
So like the idea is not to get caught in that cycle where we need
Dependency,
that dependency or exactly that, not get caught in that dependency where we need handholding all the time, but to understand and grow and be aware of the person that we're becoming. I mean, I think that's what the entire thing is about.
Yeah.
With that, you find authenticity, right? You find, okay, who am I? You get busy doing stuff. You figure out the kind of stuff that you like to do. You figure out the type of time that you like to spend, the type of relationships that you want to have. And as you start to figure all these different pieces of life, of your life, you start to prioritize automatically. Like, because I'm saying that because that's what happened to me. I started to prioritize automatically the stuff that I cared about. And then I realized that I was at the beginning, when I didn't have enough, I mean, I was just all over the place and everything was outside of me. I didn't have a lot of internal priorities, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah. So nothing to focus on, so you might as well be scattered.
Well, I mean, I was focusing on business and working on, all kinds of different things, but it was just, everything was outside of me. I was just, operating, from with no real, a purpose or no real destination in mind, right? I wanted to put food on the table and that kind of stuff. But when you take a deeper look at who you are and you find your authentic self, which can be, easier said than done, you start to act in very different ways. You start to, okay, cool. I mean, I'll find a morning ritual. Start with that one simple thing that we always talk about, right?
Yeah.
The reason I like doing stuff like that is because you start doing it for a week, 2 weeks, and then you're going to figure out the stuff that you don't like.
Yeah.
And as you start to, this process of elimination, you end up with a basket of things like, oh shit, I actually like that. I didn't know I like reading. Wow. Like I didn't know I like, studying. I just, don't like the school context. I like
Yeah,
my
like
own
studying
type
what
of
I
studying.
like. Yeah.
So you start to discover a lot of things about you, and as you discover things about you, you become more authentic, and you become more authentic. You figure out who you are, and then you figure out what other pieces complement you. Not, you're not dependent on them. But they complement your path. They complement, relationships, right? What kind of relationships complement you? What kind of opinions do actually, fucking matter, as opposed to just the noise and everything that's out there? I mean, I think that's it's a beautiful thing to operate from, right, and create as a base.
Well, it's an excellent investment of your time and attention, because what better thing to study than you? Because you're going to be with you wherever you go for the rest of your life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was just talking to have you heard of a...
You're a master of the obvious.
Thank you. Have you heard of the human design?
What, human design?
Yeah. It's a chart thing. Anyways. But I was just talking with one of my private clients this morning, and his strength is like he's an experimenter. You know what I mean? And so I talked to him about, well, that's why we call these things a practice, right? You're experimenting, you're learning.
Right.
And so if you identify what you don't want or you don't like, to identify what you do like is pretty simple. Like you just think of it's polar opposite. You know what I mean? Like it's so you can learn faster with these kinds of things. But and then my strength was basically the challenge solver. Like I love challenges. I create elevated challenges that I get to go solve.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like you can be left with problems that are just facing you day to day, which is so like, that's not inspiring. That's not empowering.
Yeah.
Or you can create problems to go solve. And he said, oh man, I would hate that. Like problems scare me. And I'm like, because you think it's hard, but here's the deal. It's like a challenge you can rise above, a challenge you can meet. You know what I mean? So,
you know what challenges do too, man? And I love where you're going with this is they'll change your priorities.
100%.
When you had enough time to worry about what other people think, irrelevant, to your success or not, right? When you have a challenge, when you have something, and I was just having this conversation on Saturday, when you have something real in front of you, and you intentionally create a challenge out of it, now you're occupied, right? You're trying to figure something out, and you have something in front of you that becomes more relevant and a higher priority than the dead space that we give to thinking, taking other people's opinions at cost. If you get busy enough and you get intentional enough with something that's really going to move the needle, like that stuff starts to dissipate, start to fade
100%.
away.
Oh yeah,
and you don't even have to worry about you don't
Nope.
even have to worry. You don't even have to worry about being afraid of what other people think, because you come to the point where you realize like I just don't give a.
It wasn't in your awareness anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't. And again, we're always going to care about a select group of people, right? Our significant others, our best relationships,
Sure,
best friends, and that type of stuff. What we're talking about here is being afraid of the general consensus of who we are, because that's not going to take you to your ideal self. It's not going to be authentic to you. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah. So that's a key in transcending the fear of other people's opinions. It's like, why don't you go create a challenge, a problem you get to solve that's worthy of you?
Yeah.
Meaning worthy of your time, because that means it's worthy of your life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you might as well create that. And when you're so intent on that and you're investing your energy moving forward, you're right. All this other stuff is just falls to the wayside. It just leaves
but what
your
if
awareness.
it's so out of the box and it's out there and
the
like,
better.
And I'm people are gonna think I'm crazy if I go after something like that. Like I can't do it. Like why? Like,
listen, if your idea, your worthy challenge, your worthy problem you get to go solve, if you tell that to people and they don't laugh at you, and then they don't say, yeah, right, you're never gonna pull that off, then it ain't worthy of you.
Yeah,
it's too small. If they're like, oh yeah, that's cool, it's like because they think you can hit it, which there's no growth in that.
Yeah,
it's got to be something big.
Yeah.
And then
make it count.
Yeah, like then what are your truths? What do you know about you that's factual? You know what I mean? Like I've written them down. I used to write them out every single morning. I put them on a board so I can look at it before meditation. Yeah, totally. But I could read it. So that's all that mattered. And one of them is like I always figure it out. Yeah. It may take me a while, but I always figure it out. Right?
Yeah,
I never let myself down. I am unfuckwithable. The only person that can fuck with me is me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like retain your power, all these kinds of things. Yeah. And then we'll get into the personal philosophy.
Yeah, it's good to have that, that self conversation, right? That I care about. You know, I care about what the inner me thinks.
Yeah.
Another thing, interesting thing.
Real quick. Like, if you want to make the voices on the outside a lot quieter, then you got to increase the volume of the voice on the inside.
Love that.
Like, when you care more about what you think of you, man, effortlessly, the opinions of others just melt away.
You just get louder.
Yeah.
You numb everything else out. Again, that kind of stuff takes some intention and effort. You know,
Practice.
I don't want to say, you know, intention and practice really is going to highlight, you know, the beautiful parts about ourselves. Crazy thing is, a lot of times, like the people around us, the close people around us, they don't believe in themselves, so we end up being a mirror for their own beliefs, and we take it as a, you know, like we're not, you know, worthy of being believed in, right? Yeah. I've gotten, you know, the like demoralizing comments, you know, we'll call it that, from people, you know, even family members in the past.
That's usually the worst offenders.
Yeah. And like, you know, I took it at the beginning, right? I took it too hard, especially when you're starting off and
you believed them.
Because you're unsure, like you're insecure about yourself. You're not like that level of confidence of, I'm going to figure shit out. Like, I mean, it doesn't come with the entrepreneur hat. Like,
no,
that
you might say it yourself, you don't really believe it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, affirmations and all that stuff, like, which I love, by the way. But at the beginning, like, they do feel like just writing on paper, right? Until you start to adopt them and then become or grow into them. Like, it's a process.
So are you saying you can make a truth about you, like, true by way of just rehearsing?
I say it's, but I mean, you can.
I mean, because the self-imposed limitations you have now, you only have because you rehearsed them.
No,
you know
1,000%.
Yeah.
It's wiring, right?
Yep.
We're going back to that wiring conversation that we had. I mean, and they call it wiring, just psychological,
you
know, synapses and all that stuff. But it's you start to create this idea of yourself, right? And the louder it gets, the clearer it gets. Mm-hmm. A lot of times we'll get you know, opinions from those close to us that can, you know, break us down before we even get started, and that's a fucking scary thing to think about, right? So I urge you, if you have entrepreneur dreams, if you have, I mean, not even of entrepreneurship. I mean, if you're just thinking of pursuing your highest and best life, don't let anybody else stop you, because a lot of times what we hear back, what we're getting from other people, it's nothing other than a sounding board off of what, you know, where they're at in their life.
It's a projection.
It's a projection. Yeah. It's you know,
they're speaking their limitations to you.
I don't borrow. Let me put it to you this way: I don't borrow other people's lack of belief in themselves. All right.
I like that, man. That's really good.
I just don't.
Did you give that to him, Gio?
Use what?
Did he give that to you? You know, and so there's going to be some people watching, and they're like, "Oh, Raph, Justin, you don't understand. My dad is the worst. He's a critic." It's like, why the fuck are you listening? Why are you sharing those details?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, as I say, man, who you surround yourself with matters. Yeah. And you're like, "Oh, but I live with my dad. I can't. I'm his caretaker." Great. Why are you sharing those details? Like, why don't you be responsible and limit that exposure with that individual that's such a naysayer? Even if you love them to death and they love you. You know, that's just who they are. And again, as you said, they're projecting their own limitations onto you. Yeah. But you don't have to listen. You don't have to take it in. You know what I mean? Like, a boat floats because of the water around it. It sinks when the water gets in it. Yeah. You allow those things on the inside because you don't have truth, you don't have your personal philosophy, of course you're going to sink.
It's the exact same thing with other people's opinions.
Yep.
Being afraid of them is like being afraid to breathe at this, you know, day and age, man. It's things are going to happen, especially if you're putting yourself out there, if you're betting on yourself, if you're taking any kind of fucking risk, like something's going to happen. You know, your circle may be 5 people, maybe 5 million. It doesn't matter, right? But something's going to happen where you rub somebody off the wrong way, and it just, you know, comes back, and or somebody, gossip has always been a thing, like you name it, right? At the end of the day, if you have clarity on who you are, right? If you have this conviction, I think, on who you want to become, we have the tools that we need to, you know, grow into this person that, you know, is you know, strong and has confidence and has the ability to change and impact, you know, for the better, you know, those around them.
Yeah, you become resolute, that sovereign being. So let's talk about the personal philosophy. And This is something like whenever I get on stage, there's a first few minutes that kind of rattle me a little bit. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like there's a big audience. You're like, oh.
When you start opening up, like, hey, my name's Rafael Cortez. And then I end up all confident, like at the beginning, like, yeah, let's get it.
Yeah.
So like the voice changes, like.
But you get on stage, you're like,
yeah.
You know, for a couple of minutes.
I feel like Bambi, like when he's born, like my legs are like that. I get nervous. Like
totally, we all do, right? So how do you mitigate that to an extent? So whether you're getting on stage or you're launching a podcast, whatever it is, you're putting yourself out there.
Face. I really do that.
Wake up.
Not a face on the shoulder.
You know, it works. You done?
Sorry.
It helps that this personal philosophy to remind you of who you are, what you're about, where you're going, what you're doing, and why. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So first and foremost, if you're putting yourself out there as far as pushing content, like you got to realize if you're putting the content out there, you're putting yourself out there so that you can get the approval of others, the connection, like you're going to be fucked because you won't always get it. And I say, hey, listen, if you don't have haters, you haven't made it yet. You know what I mean? Nobody knows about you. Because inevitably, law of averages, people are going to hate you, no matter what your message is, right? People hated Jesus Christ. Yeah. No? Okay. So, but just remind yourself that the reason I'm putting this out there is because it's been impactful for me, it supported me, and I desire to share this with others. So I'm going to bring value. So now I'm making it about them, not about me.
Yeah.
Yeah? So personal philosophy, there's a couple questions you can really ask yourself. Like, when you're at your best, what are the underlying beliefs about self that compel you, that empower you? Like, what do you know about you to be true? What are those beliefs?
What do you know about yourself when you're at your best? I love that.
Yeah, like when you're doing something and you're in your zone and you're just doing the best at what you do.
Yeah.
Like, what's driving that? What are those beliefs that allow you to do that? They're there.
Yeah.
And if you just pay attention to your body, that's like the biggest thing, especially for dudes, right? Because we're taught at a young age, disconnect from those emotions, don't show emotions.
Yeah,
don't be a little
really
girl.
good at that.
You know what I mean? Like we're just conditioned that way. And that's not supportive for our greatness. It's just not.
Yeah.
So for men especially, you got to get back in touch with the body. Like, what is it feeling right now? What are those emotions? Breathe, relax, just be aware. Don't push it away. Don't shove it down. Just sit with it. Let it be. Like, emotions that come in waves.
It may sound silly, but I think we have to make an emphasis of contemplating our energy. Where is our energy? Like, how does it feel? And try to visualize. Like if you were this ball of energy, what color would you be? How big would you be? How hot? How cold would you be?
Where in your body do you feel it?
Yeah.
And so for dudes out there, we're talking energy. If you think about it, and I'm saying emotions.
Yeah.
Emotion. Emotions are nothing more than energy in the body that's moving around. It's emotion.
Yeah.
Emotion, energy, emotion. So dudes, you do have emotions.
Yeah.
So, and then taking a look at like, maybe identify some of the people you really look up to. Like, who do you admire? And what is it about them, personality-wise, that you admire? I'll give you an example. Like, love him, hate him, doesn't really matter. Elon Musk. There's two things that I admire about that gentleman. He's a visionary, and there's a no-quit attitude. Now, when you identify who the person is that you admire, and you write down why, here's a dirty little secret. You admire those personality characteristics in that person because you secretly see them in yourself. That's your point of reference to see them in somebody else, obviously.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But write them down. And what are some of your favorite quotes that when you read that quote, you're like, oh man, I feel good. I feel inspired, empowered, powerful.
And this is interesting because there are certain quotes that will stick with you forever. Like they like you can go back to that quote and I can tell you, like I can think of one right now that I know changed the way that I think about everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it?
Paulo Coelho. I mean, I've talked about it before, but I refuse to walk carefully through life only to arrive safely at my death.
I love that one.
I mean, it's such a powerful quote. Every time I'm second guessing myself, I'll go back to something like that and then think, okay, is this in alignment with my higher and best self? Is this really where I want to head to? Yeah. Then why the fuck am I not doing it?
Totally. So I've got.
I don't want to arrive safely to my death.
Yeah, right. That doesn't sound fun. That's not an adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got two. And one is from Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Yeah.
And it's man becomes what he thinks about all day long.
Yeah.
And the other, actually my brother told me, and I don't know where the hell he heard this, but we were really young when he said this. And he said, when you act boldly, unseen forces will aid you. So same one. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so it's like, okay, if I become what I think about all the time, then why don't I choose what I want to think about? And if I'm willing to put myself out there, I'm going to get support.
Right.
Like I'm not just me, an island left to my own devices. I'm going to have help, and I just have to have trust in that process and faith that it's going to unfold.
Yeah.
And it's made all the difference in the world.
Yeah. I love it, man. It's
So real quick to wrap that up.
oh, okay.
So, we're whiteboard kind of guys. Like, you haven't seen my place recently because he never comes over. It's always go to your house. But
I never get invited, just for the record.
anyways, I have two.
Oh, I'm sorry. Were you gonna say something?
I'm just gonna let that one go for the audience's sake. I got 2 4-foot by 8-foot like roll-on stick on the wall whiteboards. Super cool. And so you can take some of those personality characteristics of that person you admire. You can take those beliefs that really support you. You can take all those things that we discussed and just put them on the board and scratch off what doesn't truly move you, circle what really does, and make up that philosophy. Yeah. Like, it's just a quick one-liner. It could be 2 words, just something that if you wrote that down on a card or something and stuck that in your pocket, and every time you reach your hand in your pocket and you feel that card, pull it out and read it. Because as you said, like, neurons that fire together, wire together.
Yeah.
Like, what are you conditioning yourself to become? And just remind yourself. That way, when you enter a scary moment, where you walk into that meeting for a promotion, or you go to that client for a big ask, whatever it is, you're getting on stage, you're hitting record on the podcast, whatever it is, you've got that personal philosophy to resource yourself on, I've got this. I'm moving forward, and I'm bringing my greatness to the world. I have gifts, talents, and a unique way of expressing that nobody else can. And I owe it to myself to bring that version of me forward.
Be you, do you, love you.
There you go, man.
Yeah. Awesome. Great episode, dude. Great talk.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's always fun.
It's always fun. And I think very relevant, right? Like, it's, again, go back to it. Think about the impact that, spending all that time in somebody else's energy, because that's what we're doing, right? Spending all that time in somebody else's energy does for ourselves. What does it do for your bottom line? What does it do for you energetically, emotionally? And at the end of the day, like, does it really matter what what the general consensus is about you if you're not living your highest and best life, if you're not having your own smiles, if you're not walking your own path, and you're borrowing, experience and a quality of life from somebody else, like, it's difficult, right? So
yeah, one last thing I want to say on that, because you said spending your time on that, paying attention to things that don't matter. If you're an entrepreneur, you can look at cost-benefit analysis. What is this costing me to spend my time on this? And what is the benefit? What am I getting from this besides nothing?
Yeah.
Or you can look at it as, with money. Like, everyone's so focused on money. You spend it, and you invest some, right? But before you invest money, what do you want to know? What's my ROI? What's my rate of return? Yeah? So instead of spending time worrying about other people's opinions or judgments, when you spend money, it's gone. Yeah. Why don't you invest in your own opinion? Why don't you spend attention and time and energy there with self? Because you're going to get a return on that.
Yeah.
So.
That's one you can bank on.
Yeah.
All right.
He's in raw form today.
Oh, yeah.
Should have heard the conversations before we hit record.
I'm all over it. All right. No, awesome. So, family, I hope you found that insightful. I know every single time we sit down, dude, it's like golden nuggets that just kind of, come to the top, right? And it's just awarenesses. And it's important to have that level of critical thinking in in our lives as we go through the process. So, with that being said, where can somebody get a hold of you?
Yeah, social media, Justin Thorstad or JustinThorstad.com, YouTube, and my cell, 602-348-8534.
You're getting pretty confident with the with the YouTube. Yeah,
practice.
Yeah, there you
at
go.
Mindset Coach JT. There you go.
Bam! That's one I was looking for. All right. And do us a big favor if you like the content that we're putting out. Do us a big favor. Let me rewind.
Okay.
Rewind. That dates me. So if you like the content that we're putting out there for you on a regular basis, do us a favor and help us spread the word, right? This is a two-way street. It's a give and take, type of deal. We like having conversations that matter. We like having conversations that actually make an impact. So we get super hyped up when people ask us to talk, mindset on something specific, right? Because that shows us, one, the level of interaction that we're having out there, the level of impact, the ripple effects that we can't see from this side of the camera. So if you have any questions, comments, or whatnot, drop them in the chat, in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done so yet. You like, and then you share it. And we'll catch you guys on the next one. Stay focused. You got this. Let's go.